The Miami Dolphins could be gearing up for a major move before the November 4th NFL trade deadline, and it involves Seattle Seahawks cornerback Riq Woolen. Now, at first glance, some fans might laugh this off. After all, Miami isn't exactly sitting on top of the AFC or locked into a playoff spot right now. But don't dismiss this idea too quickly. There are real reasons why the Dolphins might consider pulling the trigger before that deadline. Before we dive deeper into the possibilities, let me remind you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. And of course, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Alright, now back to Woolen. Reports suggest that the Seahawks could actually be willing to move him. NFL insider Ian Rappaport mentioned this recently after Seattle's Thursday Night Football win. The Seahawks are sitting at 3-1, and with rookie star Devin Witherspoon back healthy and locked in as CB1, Woolen's role has started to shrink. His snaps have gone down, he's in a contract year, and many around the league believe he could be available ahead of November 4th. And honestly, it's hard not to be intrigued. The Dolphins' secondary has looked better recently, but let's be real, this team still doesn't have a long-term answer at cornerback. Adding a young, talented player like Woolen could be exactly what Miami needs. For those unfamiliar with him, Woolen was a fifth-round pick in 2022 out of UTSA and immediately turned heads. As a rookie, he tied for the NFL lead in interceptions and earned a Pro Bowl selection. But what makes him so unique are his physical gifts. At just 26 years old, he stands 6 feet 4 inches, 210 pounds, with speed and athleticism that made him one of the most intriguing prospects in his draft class. Riq Woolen's physical tools are just unreal. He ran a 4.26 40 at 6 feet 4 inches and 210 pounds. That's freakish speed for a cornerback his size. When you watch him in the right scheme, with solid technique, you see flashes of a player who can be one of the top corners in the entire league. His rise was nothing short of electric. As I mentioned earlier, Woolen was a Pro Bowler as a rookie and looked like he and Devin Witherspoon could form a dangerous duo in Seattle's secondary for years. Over his first couple of seasons, he showed that potential. 11 interceptions, 28 pass breakups, and a completion percentage allowed of just 57%. Sure, he gambled a bit, giving up 14 touchdowns during that stretch, but his playmaking ability was undeniable. This year, though, the story has been very different. Opposing quarterbacks are completing nearly 67% of passes against him. He's allowed 10 catches on 15 targets, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, and a passer rating of 120.1 when targeted. That's a major drop-off from the promise he showed early in his career. And you can't ignore the context. Ever since the Seahawks brought in head coach Mike Macdonald, formerly the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, Woolen just hasn't been the same fit. He hasn't thrived in this new system the way he did under Pete Carroll. And now, with his playing time fading, it's clear his future in Seattle is uncertain. This is only Woolen's second year under Mike Macdonald, and the timing says it all. The moment Macdonald arrived in Seattle and put his system in place, Woolen's production dropped. It's not about a lack of talent. We've already seen him play at a Pro Bowl level as a rookie. It's simply that he hasn't meshed with the new defensive scheme. That's exactly why I see him as a gamble worth taking. If he truly is available, I'd be willing to roll the dice on a trade before the deadline. The upside is just too great. Of course, the value is where things get tricky. As good as Woolen can be, his struggles over the past year and the fact that he's in the final season of his contract make it complicated. If you trade for him, you're either getting a short-term rental or you're committing to him long-term with a new deal. The projected price floating around the league? Roughly a conditional 4th-round pick in 2026, early on day 3 of the draft. For a player with Woolen's ceiling, that's a bargain worth thinking about. And it's no surprise that when potential landing spots were discussed, 2 teams stood out: the Las Vegas Raiders and the Miami Dolphins. Miami makes sense. Even if they're not a clear Super Bowl contender right now, anytime a young, physically gifted cornerback hits the trade market, the Dolphins should be part of that conversation. The Dolphins actually have the draft capital to make a move like this. In 2026, they hold their 1st and 2nd round picks, plus multiple 3rd-rounders. They even have a projected compensatory pick coming in the middle rounds. That means Miami has the flexibility to package an early day 3 pick for a player like Riq Woolen without sacrificing their future. And honestly, that's fair value. We're talking about a 26-year-old cornerback with Pro Bowl pedigree who has shown he can be a difference maker. Sure, he's had a down stretch in Seattle under a new scheme, but the raw talent hasn't disappeared. Put him in a defense that maximizes his size and speed, and he can absolutely bounce back. Would he instantly be a shutdown CB1? Probably not. But he could easily be an above-average starting corner, a top 30 to 35 player at the position, and that's something Miami desperately needs. Combine his youth with his physical tools, and he could even grow into the future cornerstone of the Dolphins' secondary. That's why this move makes sense. Miami needs answers in the defensive backfield, and Woolen's upside is far too tempting to ignore. It's not just about Riq Woolen. It's about the position itself. The Dolphins simply need to make a move at cornerback before the deadline. This secondary has no long-term stability. Right now, Rasul Douglas has been steady, but he's 30 years old and only on a one-year deal. Jack Jones, same thing, short-term contract and not exactly the type of player you build a secondary around. The Dolphins drafted Jason Marshall Jr. in the 5th round, but before his injury and IR stint, he struggled badly. Beyond that, names like Kader Kohou, Ethan Bonner, or Cornell Armstrong don't exactly scream future cornerstone. That's the reality. Miami doesn't have a young cornerback to truly develop and build around. And that's why someone like Woolen makes so much sense. He's still just 26. He has proven Pro Bowl talent, and his ceiling is miles higher than anything currently on Miami's depth chart. This isn't just about patching a hole for 2024. It's about securing the future of the cornerback room and giving Miami a chance to finally have stability at one of the most important positions in football. And here's the bottom line. Miami simply doesn't have anything close to a long-term answer at cornerback. That's why waiting for free agency isn't the best solution. The upcoming class of corners isn't exactly stacked. Yes, there are some names: Greg Newsome from the Browns, Marcus Jones from New England, Cam Taylor-Britt in Cincinnati, Jalen Watson in Kansas City. But outside of that group, the market looks thin. And even then, you could make the argument that Riq Woolen is the top potential free agent cornerback in 2026. Which begs the question, if he's already being floated as a trade candidate right now, why wait? Why risk losing him to another team when Miami could step in at the deadline and lock him up long-term? To me, the answer is simple. If both Woolen and Greg Newsome are even remotely available, the Dolphins should be making calls. They need a young, athletic corner with star potential, and those are exactly the types of players who rarely hit the market. This isn't just about adding depth. It's about seizing the opportunity to reshape the future of Miami's secondary. Greg Newsome's trade value could end up being a little higher than Riq Woolen's. Right now, he's in his 5th-year option season, and the numbers show he's still very solid. 12 receptions allowed on 17 targets, no touchdowns, and a passer rating under 100 when thrown at. Newsome's got fluid movement, good size, and he's proven himself as a starting caliber corner. If the Browns were to move him, the price might be a straight-up 3rd-round pick, maybe a conditional 4th, very similar to Woolen. And that's where it gets fascinating. Will the Seahawks really trade Woolen? Will the Browns consider moving Newsome? Or will both of these young corners get extensions before the deadline drama hits? Those are the questions swirling around the league right now. But here's my final word. Teams can't be afraid to take a swing. Just look at the Bears a couple years ago. They weren't a contender, but they still gave up a 2nd-round pick for Montez Sweat. Why? Because they believed in his future as a cornerstone pass rusher, and they'd rather lock him up early than hope to draft someone just as good. The Dolphins should follow that exact blueprint. Trade a 3rd or 4th-round pick for a young, talented corner like Woolen or Newsome. Extend him. Cement him into your secondary as a CB1 or CB2 for years to come. Then use your premium draft picks to build around that strength. That's how you turn a weakness into a foundation piece. And that's how Miami can reshape its defense for both now and the future. And if Miami does pull this off, the impact could be huge. Imagine pairing a young corner like Woolen or Newsome with this defense. It gives you flexibility. Not only could you lock down the secondary for years to come, but it would also free up the Dolphins to use future draft picks on other areas, strengthening the offensive line, adding pass rush, even setting up at quarterback down the road. That's why if either of these corners is truly available for a mid-round pick, Miami should not hesitate. A 4th-rounder for that kind of talent? That's a move you have to make. Honestly, It would be frustrating to watch the Dolphins sit back and miss out on such a golden opportunity. So here's the bottom line. This deadline could shape the future of Miami's defense. Will they swing big for Woolen or Newsome? Or will they let another team scoop up a young cornerstone? That's the question hanging over the next few weeks, and it could define the path of this franchise.